Hey everybody, this is Christian and today I'm going to take another look at Ansible Semaphore. Or wait, I better should call it now just Semaphore UI. Because this project has recently made a huge shift from being just a simple web UI for Ansible to a modern DevOps automation tool supporting multiple technologies like Ansible, Terraform, OpenTofu and also Bash. That's why I thought it should be worth making another video about it, because as you all know, I love automation in IT, especially anything that is related to Terraform, GitOps and all that stuff. So let's get into it. I'm going to show you everything that is new in Semaphore UI, and we also talk about the stuff that is, in my opinion, still missing in this new version. Before we start, I quickly want to remind you of another important topic, securing the remote access to your HomeLab services, and a big thanks goes out to TwinGate for sponsoring this video. TwinGate is a zero-trust network access platform that is easy to deploy, even easier to use and always secure. In my previous videos, we've already covered the essential benefits of the ZTNA concept in IT, why this is so much better than using traditional VPNs, and I also made some tutorials about installing TwinGate in your HomeLab, and we also covered the brand new Kubernetes operator to quickly and easily implement ZTNA in your Kubernetes services, as well as the Terraform provider to automate the deployment of TwinGate resources in your HomeLab. The Terraform provider for TwinGate can of course also be fully automated with Semaphore UI that we are covering in this video, because it now supports Terraform, so that even helps you to automate the remote access and VPN configurations in your HomeLab. Again, you can use TwinGate entirely for free, up to 5 users and 10 different remote networks, and it runs on your NAS, your Raspberry Pis, the cloud, and of course in a VM in your local Proxmox environment as well. So check out TwinGate, start making your network more secure and safe. I will leave you a link to the website in the description of this video. Okay guys, so let's get back to topic and talk about Semaphore UI. You can see some of the new features of this application on their website that just recently updated. That is kind of funny because I haven't really planned to include those features in today's video. They just updated the website at the day once I started the recording. And here you can see they just released Terraform, OpenTofu and Bash, but they're also working on 3 new features that I didn't know before, called Pulumi, Docker and PowerShell. So that will be also pretty interesting. Maybe I have to do a second video once those features get into the Semaphore UI release build. But hey, who knows, we will see. What is also very interesting, they kind of changed their offering quite a few times since adding those features. So there was a premium version at some time which cost like $8 a month, but it seems like they now reverted back to the old open source model that you get all the features in the free and open source community version. But you can also now use their free cloud hosted version if you want to use the free tier. You get all the open source features and you also get some notification support. And if you need some additional capabilities for running multiple tasks and a larger cache for running more complex automation workflows, you could also upgrade their cloud offering. Of course, those things are also possible in the open source version as well. So I'm really happy that Semaphore UI reverted their premium offering back to the original open source offering, where everything is available to us as a community, because I believe they can still make some money on cloud versions. Yeah, maybe they also might sell this to enterprise customers with additional single sign-on features whatsoever, so other companies do it that way. But please don't put Terraform, OpenTofu, Pulumi or any of those features behind a paywall. So I think this direction is really so much better going forward this way. And yeah, let's have a look at some of the new features in some detail. By the way, if you are entirely new to Semaphore UI and you want to have a deep dive tutorial that explains how to install and set it up in a HomeLab environment using Docker and Docker Compose, then check out my older tutorial about Ansible Semaphore. I will link you that in the description down below. As you can see, the design hasn't really changed much from the previous versions, and all your existing Ansible playbooks will still work also when you upgrade to the newer version of Semaphore UI. So everything is automatically migrated, there's nothing else you have to do. There are just a few new features that you can now use for this application. For example, when you go to task templates, where you usually created your Ansible playbook automation tasks, you can see that it now has an icon before that name. And when you click on new template, you can create an Ansible playbook. So that was the only option before. But now you got a Terraform code, an OpenTofu code, and a Bash script task template that you can also create. If you create those task templates, you still have the 3 different types, the task, the build and the deployment task. And now here, in the case of a bash script, you can also select a repository just like it was working before. You can connect GitHub, GitLab, or your self-hosted Git repositories just like you want, and it will automatically clone the instructions or the script code from that repository and execute it in a task template. What is also pretty new, and I think this is also a great feature, is the new scheduler. So when you want to automatically schedule tasks with a cron job, for example, you can now add a new scheduler, and you now got a more user-friendly menu where you can define a cron expression. You can also select it from a drop-down menu, and it will automatically create that cron expression for you, which is much easier, and so you don't need to look that up every time. So it's much simpler. Of course, you can define what tasks should automatically run. So this is how you can plan automatic maintenance updates or package updates using Ansible. Or you can also do something with a Terraform or a simple bash script. There's also another new feature that is called integration, so you can now add webhooks to this. And this is a really powerful feature because you can now trigger those task templates by using Git webhooks or using API instructions to connect external and third-party applications. A much deeper integration of automated workflows in a DevOps environment. But let's do a quick example. So I've created a new Git repository on my self-hosted GitLab environment. So you can see it's gonna be definitely a topic for an upcoming video, which is pretty cool. I just need to sign in. As you can see, I can also authenticate with Authentic using a passwordless authentication. Really cool. So yeah, you will know what's coming in the next weeks. And here I have created a repository that I've already connected in the Semaphore UI. And any code that we put on this repository, Semaphore will have access to, and this is where we can put our bash scripts or Terraform code or Ansible playbooks as we know before. Now let's open this in VS Code, and I've created a quick example here, for example, the bash test script. So this is just a hello world script, which is super simple, but you could basically add any bash script code in here that you like. And then you go back into Semaphore UI, simply create a new task template for a bash script and give it a name, something like bash test. Can add a description and use the script name. So the script name where the file or the script is located in the Git repository. As you can see, it's located in the Semaphore folder, and it's called bash test 1. So we'll just copy the name, Semaphore, and select the correct self-hosted Git repository. Now you can also specify an environment. So in the Ansible Semaphore tutorial video, I explained how to provision specific environment variables, but you can also define an empty environment that has no additional variables. Let's create the task and let's just start and run it. And as you can see, that now clones the repository from my local environment into a temporary folder in the Semaphore UI installation and just executes the file. As you can see, there's nothing special in here, it just does a simple hello world. But as I said before, just add your code in here and it will work the same way, just like you execute it in any other environment. By the way, what is pretty interesting, because you can also install Semaphore UI locally on a server, but we of course installed in a Docker container. And some problems that might occur are, so if you're writing or using code or applications in your environment that are not part of the Docker image of Semaphore, you can still create your own Docker image by extending the official Semaphore UI Docker image and add the application and the dependencies and requirements for your scripts into your custom Docker image. So I'm probably covering this in my Docker tutorial course, so you can check that out. I will put your link to this in the description as well. But now let's do some Terraform tasks. So for example, let's create a new project directory. I will just call this Terraform test here and start with a provider Terraform file. So this is where we define our Terraform code. And for example, let's just deploy something on my Kubernetes environment. I think that would be pretty cool. So I'm just going to define the regular instructions at a required provider for Kubernetes. Maybe we can use an updated version. So anything that is newer than 2.3.1. I think that is the latest version that I could find online. And of course, we also need a provider configuration for Kubernetes. One of the things that I believe are still missing in this new version of Semaphore UI, you have a key store where you can add your SSH keys for Ansible playbooks and other passwords for Git repositories and stuff, but there is no real secret manager that would give you the ability to add Kubernetes credentials or any secret variables that you want to use in your Terraform files yet. So I discussed that with the developer of Semaphore UI, and he promised me that this is a feature that will be added in the future. So it will probably get a secret manager or some form of adding secret variables to this application, because I think this is super important. For now, what I've done, I just mounted my Kubernetes configuration file in a persistent container volume mount. So here is my Semaphore UI Docker Compose file, so where all the credentials are and so on. And I've added a data folder where I've put my kubeconfig file. So I just need to refer to the kubeconfig file in the /data directory inside the container, and it will then have all the credentials to securely authenticate to my Kubernetes cluster. So that is gonna be /data kubeconfig. And what we should also define is the kube context. So I've added credentials for multiple Kubernetes clusters in my HomeLab, and I want to use the kube demo environment to deploy something using Terraform here. All right, so that's it for the provider settings. Let's try to do a simple test and create a new file called resources.tf. So here I'm gonna create a new resource. Let's just define a simple example namespace. Something like, yeah, example. I think it's easy as that. All right, so let's push those updates to my self-hosted GitLab environment. And let's check if the code is uploaded. Yep, so that just worked. Let's create a new task template for the Terraform code. So I'm just gonna call this Terraform test. And now the subdirectory path is the folder where the Terraform files are located. So in my example, it's simply called Terraform test. And we select the correct repository, and the environment can be empty as well. So I think that should be fine. Let's create this task and let's go into this project. And yeah, let's just run it. So you can see it clones the repository, it initializes the provider plugin, and also gives you the output of if you would just execute the Terraform CLI on the local shell. And it always needs a confirmation. This is, by the way, another criticism that I have for this, because it doesn't give you the option to auto-confirm this or auto-approve. You always have to click on a button here. But the developer also said this is going to be addressed in a future version. So maybe if you're watching the recording of this video, it has already been addressed. And yeah, let's try to do this. So then it will execute a Terraform apply command. And as you can see, this was successful. So the Terraform namespace should have been created. Let's check on my Kubernetes environment. So if that was created, and yeah, as you can see, this is our example namespace. Pretty cool. Okay, so maybe I am fine with that example namespace, but I want to create some more Kubernetes resources. Maybe let's deploy a simple Nginx web server on my demo Kubernetes environment, also using the Terraform test task template. So the real use case would be you update your Git repository with additional resources, and the Semaphore UI, there you can just click a button and that will be automatically applied. And please forgive me, I'm just gonna be lazy and copy the stuff from my example templates, because I don't need to go through the Kubernetes deployment one by one. Just that you know what is happening here. So this is a new Kubernetes deployment in the example namespace that will deploy the Nginx container in the latest version. And I will also create a service object from type cluster IP and an ingress object that will expose it with the example-nginx name on my Kubernetes demo domain, so that we know later, once the application has been deployed, we can simply access it by using that name in our address bar. So when we have those updates and you have made your changes, you can now push those updates to the GitLab repo again. So Kubernetes Nginx deployment, for example, let's commit this. And once you have pushed the changes again, you should see those changes reflected in the resources file of your Git repository. If you're using GitLab, GitHub, doesn't really matter, it works the same way. Okay, so now back to Semaphore UI. So now when we click the run process again, it will try to execute the task again. And as you can see, as this is a previously cloned repository, it already has the existing Terraform state file. So it knows that the namespace has already been provisioned, but the other stuff that we've added needs to be changed. So now that was also successful. Maybe just open the browser in the incognito mode and let's try to open the URL. So then we know if everything worked correctly. Of course, I didn't add a certificate yet for this, but here you can see that's our Nginx web server. And yeah, it's simple as that. If you have existing Terraform templates, you can just copy them to your Git repo. You can use Semaphore UI to automate the creation process. It is super, super cool. Okay, so far so good. I think it works for very simple environments and simple tasks like that. However, there's one particular problem that you should be aware of, and I haven't addressed it, that with every Terraform project, you probably know when you execute the Terraform command from your local CLI, that it will automatically create a TF state file or a Terraform state database where it stores the current state of all the objects that you have created. And this is the way that Terraform knows which resources it has already created and which resources have to be renamed, destroyed, or newly created. And this Terraform state file is usually stored locally in the project directories. So what is particularly a problem in this scenario? Those TF state files are stored in a temporary directory inside Semaphore UI. So when you restart the container, the temporary data is gone, and when you start to run the command again, Semaphore UI doesn't remember what resources it already has created. So I can just demonstrate that problem by just restarting the container image, and it's just execute a docker compose down and a docker compose up command. And now when we log in again and yeah, we try to run our code again, you can see that it initializes a new repository because the temporary folder has been gone, the TF state file has been deleted, and it thinks that it is a fresh new environment, and it now runs into an error. So what you should never do is using those kind of DevOps automation tools without a remote backend for storing the Terraform state files. So that is not a problem of Semaphore UI. This would be a problem if you run a Terraform project on one device and on a different workstation. When maybe your laptop, you run the same project and you're not synchronizing the TF state file between those devices, you run into the same issue. What you should always do is using a remote TF state backend, for example, Terraform Cloud. That is what I'm personally using. This is, by the way, still free from HashiCorp, so you can use it with a few limits. I'll probably make a dedicated video about it because this is such an important topic, but in theory, you could also store the TF state file on any other remote backend that you might run in the cloud, or maybe you use an S3 storage bucket, but you have to store the TF state files outside of the project to have a consistent database of the objects that you have created in Terraform, so that's important to know. Let's for now delete the example namespace manually so that we can rerun this task again. And while this is running in the background, I want to show you the new feature integrations because I think this gives you so many cool possibilities. So let's go and add a new integration. So maybe I want an integration for, let's call it GitLab example or GitLab webhook, right? And the task template that I want to run is the Terraform test, so that we have created. With an authentication method, you could use the GitHub webhooks if you want to connect a GitHub repository. But because I'm using the self-hosted GitLab webhook, I'm just gonna use none. And let's create this automation task. And if you go in here, you can add an alias. This will use a randomly generated URL that you can use to trigger the task template execution process. Any API query, any web query or webhook that you can connect to this, and this is really, really super cool. So what we need to do is we need to create a matcher for this. This is also pretty interesting. It gives you some flexibility in terms of querying or extracting values from this web request to do certain things, like, for example, we can implement a simple header check so that we check the header if a key is existing and if the key, for example, is equal to a secret value. So we could use just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is not very secret, but yeah, just put any secret header key to authenticate or to verify that this web request or this webhook is coming from the correct address. And now in the GitLab repository, the self-hosted one, I can create a simple webhook. So let's do a project webhook on this repo. And this will go to, so you need to copy the URL here of your Semaphore UI server, so where you have deployed this, and then just copy the URL string from the alias. You can also add multiple alias to this project. It will also work this way, and append it here. And now I want to add the custom header so that this check will match. The key value should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the header is key. And now we can trigger this webhook on specific events that happen to the Git repository. For example, push events to all branches, or use regular expression to only trigger branches like the main branch, for example. But I will just do a quick and dirty test and just use all branches. Disable the SSL verification. I figured I could leave that on, but yeah, anyway. So let's add this webhook. So what now will happen is it will trigger the execution of the Semaphore UI task automatically when something is happening or when I push something to the Git repo. You can also test this, for example, by running a test push event. So the hook was executed. Let's check on the Semaphore UI. You can see the task is running. So this is the problem why I told the developer we definitely need a way to auto-approve this, because it's currently waiting for your manual confirmation. So usually this should not be the case, but maybe it's already fixed once you see the video. Let's confirm it for now. And now it's running and adding our resources. All right, so that was successful. And now, once we got that, we can now do some pretty cool things. Like, for example, if we want to change any resources in here, maybe we want to change the name, or maybe we want to create another object, for example, another namespace here. So let's do example namespace 2, and we now push it to the GitLab repo. Let's synchronize the changes, and then it should automatically trigger the action on Semaphore UI. So you can see, yeah, it's already running. So it's waiting for our confirmation again. We just need that auto confirm. But here you can see, because the application is still running, it automatically recognized, okay, I already added all those previous resources. They are still up to date. I just need to add this new namespace to the entire project. And once that is done, it is added to my Kubernetes environment. So to check the namespaces again, here is our example namespace. And this is how you can easily implement any GitOps workflow to Semaphore UI, combining it with any bash scripts, combining with Terraform, with Ansible playbooks. This is so powerful and really an amazing new feature. I'm pretty excited about all the other updates that I just learned about on their website about Pulumi, Docker. Just imagine what you can do with Docker and PowerShell. It's really amazing. Alright, so that's it about Semaphore UI and all the new and exciting features. I think this is really a big step in the right direction for this application, although it's not all perfect and there are a few things that have to be addressed. But I'm absolutely confident that it will happen pretty quickly. Maybe even when you're watching the recording of this video, some of the issues have already been addressed by the developers. Now we got another interesting player in the DevOps and HomeLab automation space. But now it's your turn. So what do you think about the new Semaphore UI features? Please leave a comment down below. And as always, thanks everyone for watching. I will catch you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.